Is 5,000 AOs good enough? Well, I can't speak on anyone's behalf, and even though nothing I say is financial advice, personally for me, I would say that yeah, 5,000 AOs is good enough for me. Again, even though I'm not telling anyone to believe in AOs or anything like that. But the way you take a look at it is this. If AOs were to go to the price of $5 during this bull run, at that point, 20,000 AOs would be worth at that point $100,000. Now, some people may be thinking that, first of all, okay, it's not that much. Well, the way you take a look at it is that, first of all, that's a pretty good down payment for a home. And second of all, many people that I know out there, they're not only just holding AOs. So let's say they have a very well diversified portfolio. And let's say there's a bunch of projects, and somewhere along there, there is, let's say, 20,000 AOs. And let's say during a fully fledged bull run, one AOs became $5. Now that holding, hypothetically, is now worth $100,000, right? If that scenario were to play out. Now, again, I don't think it's that bad, considering if this portfolio, which is very well diversified in this make-believe scenario, let's say there's many other projects out there that did well, and then let's say AOs is one of the pieces of that, let's say that went to $100,000, that holding, it doesn't seem so bad to me in the grand scheme of things. Also, I know some people out there with around $50,000, they traveled around the world for around 2 years. Now, it's not like they're eating out at fancy five-star restaurants, these Michelin-starred restaurants, or let's say, staying at five-star hotels every day. They're not doing that, but then still, they're able to travel, meet new people, gain new experiences, and also, again, just see the world. So the way you take a look at it is that it doesn't seem that bad in the grand scheme of things, especially if that's not the only thing I'm holding. But even besides that, if let's say I was only holding 20,000 AOs, it doesn't seem that bad to me either. However, even besides that point, AIOZ is a very special project in my opinion because, as we all know, sometimes people kind of feel like $5 is impossible. Well, I think a major factor why I don't find it that impossible is because I like its fundamentals. Of course, one of the main focuses of AIOZ moving forward is AI. Now, I get it. Some of the hype when it comes to these AI-based projects, it's kind of disappeared. But I don't find this unusual because, of course, the market had a pullback and had a pretty okay recovery, but still many of these AI projects, they're still waiting to really recover to the levels in which they were before, which many of them arguably haven't reached yet. But even besides that, why could AI be massive moving forward regardless of that? It's because the AI market is predicted to reach nearly $2 trillion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. So that's a very massive market. I mean, just take a look at the GDP of Brazil. Brazil is a very amazing country, and the GDP of it back in 2024 was around $2 trillion. So I think that, if anything, puts into perspective as to just how amazing the AI market could very well be. Not to mention, we'll see how the AIOZ network is a decentralized physical infrastructure network for Web3, AI storage, and streaming. Now, I think that if anything showcases that there's more layers to AIOZ because on top of AI, there's storage and there's streaming. Now, let me talk about why I believe the storage aspect could be good, because many people view this as kind of like the most boring aspect of AIOZ, but I disagree because the data storage market size is actually predicted to be worth nearly $800 billion by 2030, according to Fortune Business Insights. So I think that, if anything, truly puts into perspective that, hey, you know what? The data storage market could be massive. And again, only time will tell though, but I think that, if anything, showcases that, hey, AIOZ is at least heading in the right direction and they're focused on the right markets. Now, let's not forget as well, we take a look at that when it comes to the video streaming market size, by 2030, it is expected to be worth over $400 billion, yet again, according to Grandview Research. So the way you take a look at it is that they're pretty much focused on all the right markets. They're not focused on too many markets, but the markets that they're focused on, there's a lot of hypothetical potential there. Take a look at AI, storage, and as well as streaming. 3 very solid markets, and I do like this when it comes to AIOZ because it's a very simple and easy to understand project. And I don't mean it in a bad way because I think that personally, a lot of people out there, when they want to believe in a project, they want something that's easily understandable, like in a sense that it's easily digestible in a metaphorical sense, I would say, because if something is kind of hard to understand what it's all about, I think people sometimes are like, yeah, we don't really want to believe in this. But then it's a good thing that AIOZ is very simple in the grand scheme of things, even though, of course, there's more layers to it, but you know what, generally speaking, it's a very easy to understand project. So I don't find it bad whatsoever. So again, I think AIOZ is a very well-polished project in a sense that other projects out there, they don't have a very strong and passionate community in terms of the drive for the project. Sometimes also, they don't really have this sense that they don't have good attention because they have bad exchange listings. And also, we don't really know their focus in some cases. We don't really know which direction in which they're heading. But when you take a look at AIOZ, good and proven community, good exchange listings, and there's a clear and set direction here. It's pretty much the complete package. All it needs to do now is wait for a fully fledged board. I think that's pretty much it. It has all the right tools in place. Now it just needs to wait for the market to do very well, which hypothetically I think it could do well, because the way I view it is that there's now over 600 million crypto owners according to Crypto.com research. And keep in mind, we have this currently without ever seeing Ethereum reach the price of $10,000, without ever seeing Bitcoin reach $150,000. We haven't seen that. And yet we have those bullish factors. Keep in mind, back in the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was only around 300 million crypto owners. We pretty much have double that amount without Ethereum reaching these amazingly high levels, or even Bitcoin. Imagine if, let's say, Bitcoin reaches 150,000, 200,000, 250,000, let's say 300,000. And let's say Ethereum during the process reaches $10,000. Now at that point, would there only quote unquote be over 600 million crypto owners? Now, arguably, I would say maybe not, because 700 million, 800 million at that point wouldn't be too insane. And if the market does do that well, as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships, I'm assuming that something like AIOZ would go along with the ride. So I have great confidence in the future of AIOZ, however, only time will tell. But if you take a look at it, $20, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $23.5 billion. So that's not even $25 billion. But even besides that, that's around a 50x from here. It's kind of crazy to think about, because back in 2021, Dogecoin reached over $80 billion in market cap. Shiba Inu reached around $40 billion. So we just have to think about this logically, right? This doesn't seem too much to ask for, especially once the narrative for AI picks up, once the narrative for storage and streaming picks up in a massive way. And also on top of that, let's say once the market does very well, I don't view it as something too impossible, at least personally for me. Again, all I have to do right now is stay patient, because that's the only thing I can control. You know, sometimes people like to ask me, why don't you pull up a price chart, draw some random triangles, draw SpongeBob or something. That's not what I do, man, because here's the thing. I could draw all that type of stuff all day long. The market's not going to listen to what I have to draw on a price chart. It's not going to follow that. The market's going to do what it's going to do. So instead of worrying about that, what I would rather do is just focus on historical data. Take a look at what the project is about. Take a look at exchange listings. Take a look at how realistic the market cap would be at a certain price given, the current circulating supply. That's the type of stuff I would rather focus on, instead of focusing on random nonsense and drawings in which it doesn't affect anything. But even besides that point, historically, altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they usually peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. The last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of last year, so 18 months from then would actually mean around October this year. Now, that's just based off historical data. I mean, there's no exact way to tell, of course, because we can't take a look into the future, at least I can't. However, I can take a look in the past. So I don't think the bull run's over yet. I think with all those bullish factors, I just have a hard time believing that quote unquote around $100,000 was like the peak for Bitcoin during this cycle. I think there's better days ahead. And AIOZ at the price of $20, that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever during this bull run. And when sometimes people like to ask me, hey, you know what? Is 5,000 AIOZ good enough? I would say, yeah, I don't think it's a bad amount for me. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm a peace. Bye.